You said, quote, "Well, I had that death scene in mind for years before," close quote. Was that a slip of the tongue?
Was it?
I'm asking you.
So, yeah, of course, as soon as I do a video where I talk about The Sopranos ending, David Chase does an interview where he supposedly reveals what happened in the ending. It's kind of predictable because he's doing interviews to promote Many Saints of Newark, and of course people will ask him about The Sopranos ending again. But the thing is that in the interview, he doesn't actually say what people seem to think that he says. So I wanted to make a short video that's a follow-up to my video about The Sopranos ending to address his recent comments, and also to talk about a couple other things that have come up in the response to my video. The first thing I wanted to mention was a genuine mistake that I made in the first video, because if somebody does find something that I really think is a mistake, I'm willing to admit it. In the part of the video where I'm talking about William Burroughs' idea of the seven souls in Egyptian mythology and how it relates to the Sopranos characters, when he's talking about Ka, which is the portion of the soul the show relates to AJ, I had always heard him saying that Ka was the devil. Somebody in the comments, though, pointed out that Burroughs actually says double, and not devil. And it turns out that that's absolutely right.
Number 5 is Ka, the double. The Ka, which usually reaches adolescence at the time of bodily death, is the only reliable guide through the land of the dead.
I'm so used to hearing devil when I watch this scene that it still sounds that way to me.
The double.
So I went back to Burroughs' book and I looked up the passage to confirm it. And yeah, he actually does in fact say that Ka is the double, not devil. Which is interesting, and it actually makes sense because in the video I don't have much to say about the idea that AJ is a devil because I never really had a lot of ideas on that which seemed to resonate with the rest of what's in the show. I thought in some way it kind of made sense for AJ to be Tony's devil since Meadow was Tony's angel. But actually calling AJ Tony's double, of course, makes much more sense. AJ's Tony's son, he's his heir. Tony's frustration in AJ is partly because he sees some of himself in AJ.
Now, obviously, we can't send him to military school. Pediatrician said. He's got that putrid, rotten, fucking soprano gene.
How are you the cause of it?
It's in his blood, this miserable fucking existence. My rotten, fucking, putrid genes have infected my kid's soul. That's my gift to my son.
Tony blames himself for AJ inheriting his genes and his depression and his panic attacks. He's afraid that AJ will follow down his path and meet the same fate. So yeah, it doesn't actually change much of the rest of the video because I didn't really go into the whole devil idea that much. But AJ being a double instead of a devil makes a lot more sense. And I got the Burroughs quote wrong on that part. So good catch to Carlos in the comments. And then the other point I want to address, of course, is the new interview David Chase did about the show shortly after I posted my video. The Hollywood Reporter did this interview with him and gave it a headline blaring, "David Chase finally reveals what happened to Tony, exclusive." As soon as this went up, I started getting comments from people saying, "See, you were wrong. David Chase just explained what happened." And to all those comments, all I can say is, how long have we had the internet now, guys? I mean, you really should have learned by now to read an article past the headline. Don't we know how this works? I mean, for over a decade, David Chase could talk about what he had for lunch, and garbage websites will run it with a clickbait headline claiming that he's finally explained the Sopranos ending. This is about the 20th time that the internet has been all abuzz over an article somewhere claiming Chase supposedly explained the ending. To claim that in this case, though, is especially disingenuous, and if you think that it would make me change what I said in my video, then you didn't pay attention to the article at all, or to my video. First off, in the interview, Chase doesn't reveal anything new at all. Actually, the whole article is really strange like this. Scott Feinberg, who is interviewing Chase, seems to have actually done his research because he mentions many things that Chase said in past interviews, but then in spite of knowing what questions Chase has already answered ad nauseum, Feinberg just keeps asking Chase questions he's already been asked in the past, and they talk about almost nothing new in the whole interview, even though it's a long interview. When they get to the question of the series finale, it's the same thing. Chase doesn't reveal anything new at all here. All that happens is that Feinberg brings up what Chase said in a book called Sopranos Sessions from 2018, and Chase reiterates and confirms what he already said in that book. The interview with Chase in Sopranos Sessions is one of the longest Chase ever gave, and since you can tell, I've always been interested in this. Of course, I got that book 3 years ago when it came out. It was sitting on a shelf behind me when I made my Sopranos video. I mean, if you've seen the video, give me a little credit. Obviously, I read the book with the longest ever David Chase interview, and obviously I already know what he said in the interview. So in that book, 3 years before the Hollywood Reporter article, Chase already referred to the ending of the show as a death scene. But if you actually read what he says, he then goes on to talk in great detail about how, while he did have various ideas for Tony's death in mind, he decided to leave it ambiguous because the point was that whether Tony dies or not in that scene, it's going to happen to him sometime. Chase says that what he wanted to get at was that it was going to happen to all of us at some point or another, so enjoy the time we have and the people we love, because at any moment it could all be gone.
I'd like to propose a toast to my family. Someday soon, you're gonna have families of your own. And if you're lucky, you'll remember the little moments. Like this. That were good. I want to make a toast. To the people I love. Nothing else matters.
Hear, hear.
Oh, slow down, slow down. You're supposed to savor it.
I was thinking before about what you once said, how you have to max out the good times with the people you love. God, am I learning that is so true.
Actually, your father said that.
Focus on the good times.
Don't be sarcastic.
Isn't that what you said one time? Try and remember the times that were good?
I did?
This is exactly what I was talking about in my video, which is that, of course, Tony could die in that scene and you could read it as a death scene, but by not showing it to you and not saying that specifically, it makes the moment about a bigger idea. It's not about one scene or one moment of violence. It's about everything the show's been talking about for years in order to build up to that moment and earn that moment. People in the comments have pointed out the clues that Tony could have died, like the things that Bobby says on the lake, and they say this like it's something that I missed or didn't notice. I didn't miss it. I show all of that stuff in my video. I don't spend a lot of time on that stuff, and instead I mostly talk about other stuff because those ideas pointing to Tony getting shot are the most obvious part of the whole thing. That's the very first thing you should notice. I thought everybody already got that part, and now I wanted to move on and talk about the more interesting part. People still keep doing this thing where they're looking for little clues and trying to piece it together like it's a riddle with one single correct solution. But in the Sopranos Sessions book, Chase makes it clear that that's not the point. He says he wants people to have different interpretations as to what happened, and that what it's really about is a way to look at these bigger themes. Then in this Hollywood Reporter interview, not only does he not reveal anything new in spite of the clickbait headline, he clarifies even more that by saying death scene, he didn't mean that Tony died. He says specifically that when he called it a death scene, he was talking about a different version of the ending that he had considered, not the scene that was in the final episode.
Well, I had that death scene in mind for years before, close quote. Was that a slip of the tongue?
Was it?
I'm asking you.
No.
No?
Because the scene I had in my mind was not that scene.
Okay.
Nor did I think of cutting to black. I had a scene in which Tony comes back from a meeting in New York in his car. You know, at the beginning of every show, he came from New York into New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And the last scene was going to be him coming from New Jersey back into New York for a meeting at which he was going to be killed.
So for him to say that and then the Hollywood Reporter to then try to claim that this is an explanation of the scene that was in the episode when Chase says he was talking about something else, it's either just dishonest or whoever does their headlines didn't bother to listen to him. In the Sopranos Sessions book, he actually comes closer than in the Hollywood Reporter interview to saying that Tony died in the end of the show, because when he says death scene in the book, he's a little more vague about possibly referring to the scene in the episode as well as the alternate scene that he ended up not using. But when he says that again, he immediately goes on to say that he decided ultimately to be ambiguous and not to explicitly tell the viewer whether or not Tony dies in the restaurant. And again, this is a book that came out 3 years ago in which I was obviously taking into account when I wrote my video. So no, you're not telling me anything new in the comments when you jump in with the David Chase explained it. takes. Chase goes on in the Hollywood Reporter interview to make it clear yet again that by saying death scene, he was not trying to pin down what happens to Tony at the end of the show. Feinberg says that the fans were frustrated because they wanted confirmation that Tony had died, and Chase says that, yeah, he found it annoying that they wanted that confirmation.
What was annoying was how many people wanted to see Tony killed. That bothered me.
They wanted to see it. They wanted confirmation.
Wanted to know that Tony was killed. They wanted to see him go face down in Linguini, you know. And I just thought, God, you watched this guy for 7 years, and I know he's but don't tell me you don't love him in some way. Don't tell me you're not on his side in some way, and now you want to see him killed. You want justice done. You're a criminal after watching this shit.
Right.
That bothered me, yeah.
I hear you.
In other words, he didn't confirm it. He chose not to give that confirmation that Tony died, and he finds the insistence of people trying to confirm it annoying. And then, of course, the dumb headline of the article tries to claim that he did confirm it.
You want some eggs?
Don't want some eggs.
You want some eggs?
You said poached eggs.
Justin loves my eggs.
You barely touched your egg salad.
I'll go make some lunch, some egg salad.
No peppers and eggs.
You ever buy eggs from Caputo? His eggs taste 10 times better than any of the ones you get in the supermarket.
How about some egg beaters and Tabasco?
I'll take an egg. You want an egg? Bobby, make my nephew an egg.
I don't want an egg.
I think I'll take an egg. Make us a couple eggs. You and Tony Egg again.
You know, I've been meaning to ask you. Chicken or the egg? You want to weigh in?
It's eggs. Oh, Sal.
Enough with the fucking birds.